To educate the community about what it says are the dangers of literacy censorship, the Rockford Public Library hosts an inaugural event focused on book banning. Silent Stories, the hidden costs of book banning, is part of the library's new exhibit, Explorations at Lunch series. Monday's event guided attendees through an exhibit of banned books curated by local bookseller Dave Peterson. He says in the current political climate, it's important to understand the historical context of book banning and its relevance in our society.
Most people are in favor of not banning books. So most people will come out and talk about their favorite book. And the problem is that most books have been challenged or banned. So if you go home right now and you look at one of your favorite books, the likelihood is that it's been challenged or banned somewhere.